To measure progress or forward mobility, we must remember some important factors. Where do we want to go? What do we want to accomplish? The most important thing to do, which is often forgotten, is to look or to think about where we have been. As the old cliche goes, how can we know where we're going if we don't know where we've been? The following presentation is an oral history of the Black experience in Burke County. The Burke Cultural Arts Coalition invites you to take this minute to look back.
Mr. Johnson, can you tell us some of the history of your family tree?
Yes, I can give you the little history on my grandmother, my grandfather. My grandfather's name was William Johnson. My grandmother's name was Mahalie Johnson, which was his wife. And they were slaves. And Dr. Donald Johnson down at Rutherford College owned them as slaves. They were slaves under Dr. Donald Johnson. And then my mother was born 3 years before the slaves was freed. And my mother and grandfather, William Johnson and Mahalie Johnson, they said their master was pretty good to them. He was pretty nice, and he was a doctor, and he looked after their medical care, and he seemed to be interested in the welfare of their life and their health, and he didn't mistreat them. Now I want to give you something else here now. It kind of looks a little strange. Now I had my mother's uncle is my great uncle, and my mother's father and her uncle were brothers, and yet they went in different names. My mother's father went in the name of Johnson because his master was a Johnson. And his brother, Uncle Calvin Berry, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of your great-great-grandfather. And they were brothers, but he went in the name of Berry. Yeah. Because his slave master was Wesley Berry.
Yeah, I've heard my grandmother.
Yeah, Wesley Berry. You see, whenever a slave owner owned you, you went in his name. Now, it makes no difference who you were, but it's what you is whenever you, that's where you was identified, you see.
Right.
And so, they was pretty nice. It was pretty nice.
Oh, that's it. All right, can you tell us something about the church? How was the first church established in this community?
Well, the first church established in this community, if we go back to really the first church, the first church was established, it was a Methodist church, and it was Huffman's Chapel. There was a man, he lived in the community, which the community then wasn't as thick as it is now. It was scattered. At the same time, everybody gathered one place on a Sunday, and that was at the church, and that was at Huffman's Chapel, and that's about two miles from here towards the lake. And there's a man by the name of Mr. Oliver Huffman. He gave the land to the black people to build a church. And as long as they kept a church on that piece of property, they owned the land. They owned it. But after the church ceased to exist, then the property went back to the Huffman's tract, back to theirs. Well, in the meantime, they kind of fell out with the Methodists. And one man was the cause of that, because he failed to get his elder's fee. Well, then the elder decided he was a local licensed preacher, and the elder decided to set him down for 3 months. He didn't like it, so he went over to Love Lady Baptist Church, North Catawba, and was baptized. And after he was baptized, then he come back and he started working in this community, because he was the class leader in the Methodist Church, and he was still the leader afterwards, and so everything followed him, and it was baptized over at Love Lady.
Yeah.
Love Lady Baptist Church. And then after they were baptized, they come back here then, and my mother's brother-in-law, my Uncle Rock Sutherland, gave a piece of land to build a church on. And now where they gave that piece of land is where the Holiness Church is up there now.
Where the
That's where
present Holiness
yeah,
Church
where
is.
right
I
up
see.
there where the present Holiness Church is, right across, right above Ernest and Bena's.
I see.
Well, then eventually, when they did get ready to build a church, since Uncle Ark was already dead, then they decided then that they didn't want that piece. They wanted where the present church is now.
I see.
No, not where the present church is, where the old present church is. So there, they just switched and changed deeds and built the church there. And it was now. I'm going to say this, and it's going to cross up things just a little bit, but I know what I'm talking about. Now, on your present new church, the cornerstone that says Reverend Clarence Bethea organized the church. Well, that's a mistake. He did not organize the church because he never was our pastor.
I see.
Now, what happened, he was pastor of Love Lady. And they got the wrong understanding about him, I think, a couple of the deacons. And one of them was my uncle by marriage. And they locked him out of the church. Well, there's two of the men, young boys, they went and taking the lock off the door.
I mean, they actually locked him out of the church?
They
at that
actually
time?
locked him out of the church. They wouldn't let him preach. Now, in fact, that's what that was the intention, to not let him preach. But my Uncle Lee Bradshaw's son, which was Wayman Bradshaw, and the other was George Bradshaw. They both belonged to the church. Of course, they wasn't deacons at that time, but they went and they prized the lock off of the church door and let the man go on in, and he preached that Sunday. And he never did come back anymore. Now, that was their pastor, and it was not our pastor,
Oh, I see.
because we didn't have a pastor at that time. Now, he would come over and preach after he preached over there once a month on a third Sunday. Then he would come over here and preach for us that Sunday night.
Oh, I see.
Now, we didn't have a preacher. The only thing that we had preaching for us was licensed preachers, Cousin Shakeberry, Cousin Will Bristol, and sometimes a white man would come in and preach, and sometimes some other local man would passing through calling himself a preacher, and they'd let him preach.
Was this a Methodist church also?
No, this was the Baptist.
The Baptist
This is the
church,
Baptist church now. Well, yeah, this is the Baptist
I
church.
see.
And then our first pastor was the Reverend P.R.D. Gore. And that's the man that actually organized Mount Zion Church, and he wanted to name it Holy Mount Zion. And after it organized, and the congregation didn't like the holy Mount Zion, and so they cut it down and named it Mount Zion Church, and that's what it is today.
Well, I didn't know that it's Holy Mount Zion. This is
So
correct.
that's it. Holy. That's what he wanted to name it. Holy Mount Zion. And he preached until 1919, and then he left. He left. It might have been 19 and 20, but it had to be the early part of 19 and 20, and he quit. He lived at Hickory.
All right, can you give us some of the history of the schools in this community in Burke County?
Well, the first school, black school in Burke County, I remember being told about. It was Long Branch School, which I was here at the time, but I was too young to know anything about it or remember it. But I do know where it was at. And it was down here what's called the Charlie Bear place, where Lakeview Acres. That's where it was at. Lakeview Acres. Charlie Bear's father, Wesley Berry, gave the land or loaned the land to Burke County to have a black school. And after, it was a school until after he died, and then the land began to be divided up among his children, and then Charlie Bear got that part, and they closed out the school. School couldn't be there anymore, and so the county bought a place, a quarter of an acre, over here where Vivian lives, and they named it the Log School House. And I went there to that school a couple of days myself, but I don't remember who the superintendent were at that time, because he was before Mr. Patton. But I can't call his name. I know it, but I just can't call his name at present. But our teacher was Mr. Ruth Copeland. And then he taught a few years down here, and then they went switching from teacher to teacher. I can't recall all of them's name, but I know them. And so then they decided to build a new school. And so then Mr. Patton was superintendent of the schools then when that happened. And so they swapped. Where the cemetery is now, Uncle Calvin Barry owned that, and Uncle Calvin swapped a quarter of an acre of land over there to the county for that piece over there. They just swapped. And then I continued to go to school over there until I finished school. And the school stayed there. I don't remember how many years, but it was a good many years until they moved it.
How many grades was in the school?
There were 7 grades. I finished the 7th grade in that school.
And what happened after the 7th grade? Was that out the highest?
Then you had to go to Morgan. You had to go to Olive. Well, it wasn't Olive Hill then at first. It was the school, and I don't remember the name of it. The school above where Forrest Fleming lives. They had the school there. And that's where you went to school whenever you finished down here until they built Olive Hill School. Then you went there and finished your high school education at Morgan, Olive Hill.
Okay. All right, you mentioned Drexel Colored School.
Yeah, now Drexel Colored, see, it was Drexel Colored School until after they outlawed segregated schools after 1954. And then we had his committees down here on the school board, Bose Johnson, Charles Berry, Carson Kincaid. And he asked, Mr. Patton asked Bose to give him a name for this school because they couldn't call it Drexel Colored School anymore. Well, they couldn't think of a name, and he said, well, I'll give it a name. Just name it East Drexel School. And so that's where we get East Drexel School. And instead of Drexel Colored School, there ain't no more colored schools, you know. Right. It's East Drexel School.
Now, we immediately following the Civil War, can you tell us some of the things that happened from what you have heard immediately following the Civil War about the land holdings, how they acquired the land?
Well, now, the landholders, how they acquired their land. You see, they come in here, and it's just like as you read about the gold claims out west, you know, you set up a claim. Now they come in and the land, nobody owned the land, and so those landowners, those farmers, they surveyed out so much land that they wanted, maybe 300 acres or maybe 1,000 acres. It depended on how many slaves or how wealthy they was, or how much they could really, how much land that they could really take care of.
How did after the Civil War and after the emancipation of slaves, how did the slaves acquire land? Was it given
how
to
did
them?
The slaves? Well, the slaves acquired their land.
The former slaves.
The slaves acquired their land by working going back in and working for the master and paying so much as the master paid them. Then they paid so much out of their wages towards accumulating and buying their land.
All right. What about some of what were some of the rights of the blacks immediately following the Civil War and leading on up to now?
Well, what I've been told, they had more rights than what they had when we outlawed the segregation. We really didn't have too much trouble until after the First World War. Now, before the First World War, the white and colored, most of them went to church together. They went into each other's homes. They eat and they slept together. And now there's a few of them. You take the wealthier white man, he kind of segregated the black to where you didn't go to table and eat with him. You didn't drink out of the same cup that he drank from. And you didn't go to his church and take a part of the service like you would in the churches wasn't quite as up to date, you know. See, we had two classes of churches, which I think we still got that. See, we had a church that the poor class went to, preachers. Then we had the wealthy class people, if they had their churches, and they went to their churches. And so as a whole, we pretty much stayed away from their churches unless we was invited there, maybe to sing a song or something or other like that. Then we didn't go in the front door. See, we went in the back door. But at the same time, it still wasn't as bad. The only trouble we really had, what they tell me back then, was the Ku Klux Klan. See, the Ku Klux Klan didn't like for the black to be out from under slavery. And the Ku Klux Klan was the poor class of white. And you take the slave master, he treated the black people better than they did the poor white. You see, now our slave master, after he freed after the blacks was freed, then he let them tend his best land, his bottom land, where they could grow something, raise something for him and his family. Yeah. Now the white poor farmer, see, he had to rent his land too, and he had to rent it from this big landowner, because he didn't own any land. He lived on this landowner's land too. See, didn't nobody move off of any land. After the black was freed, they couldn't move off. They had no place to go. The only thing they done is stayed there. Their houses was there on the land, and so they just stayed there and turned around. Instead of working for that white man free for what they could eat, they worked for him for pay and fed themselves. And so there was the money makers for this slave owner, and so therefore he just he let them continue to work his good land and still make him plenty and give them some too.
Was this the time when the sharecroppers?
That's what it is. That's the sharecroppers. See, this was now. What you might say, the poor white man was the sharecropper. I don't know whether we could call the black the sharecropper or not, because he got more. Now, really, he got more, and he got enough, and he could buy property. And on the other hand, it looked like the sharecropper couldn't buy any property. He didn't make enough, because he's up on the hill where that land didn't produce on the hill like that good bottom land where the river would come out and overflow it every once in a while and put the ingredients back in it had been taken out. But now we go back now to the freedom part, where they had more freedom. The Ku Klux Klan tried to keep from having that freedom up to a point, but our slave owners, where we wasn't slaves anymore, they held them down until after the First World War. Now I'm going to give you this straight. Now in the First World War, now there was a few black and whites went together over here, and they got babies between one another, but nobody said nothing. Nobody got lynched. And if that white woman had a black baby, very seldom they put him out. They kept him and raised him. If it was so, if things were so hot in the community, if they couldn't keep him in that home, they'd get him out over here in some other white person's home or black person's home, and they're taking care of him. See, I know that. Yeah. But after the First World War, the black soldiers went to France. The white soldiers went to France. Well, and the black soldiers, them French women went with them black soldiers like it did the white soldiers. Then the white soldier come back here, and they felt like if that black soldier could go with them women over there, then he's going to go with these women over here. And so they formed a greater. That's really when they really organized the Ku Klux Klan to keep the black in his place.
Well, I didn't know that. Here tonight.
Isn't it?
Okay, back to the churches. when did the real separation of the churches come? Can you remember, when I say separation of the churches, I mean when did the black get their own church and when did the white, leaving the white church mostly?
I really don't know just when the white and the black churches separated. I've read something about that. But after the blacks was freed, then the white man helped them to organize a church. Before slavery, before they was freed, then a few slaves went to that white man's church. You take the leading black slave. Now all of them didn't go, but we always had a leader, a black slave, and he led, and he was the voice of his people, and so he was allowed to go to their church, and if he was a preacher, he was allowed to preach. Now, but he couldn't belong to that church. You see, he couldn't take up membership, and so really this membership business, it just come about recently anyhow. But I don't know exactly, as I say, when the blacks got organized for a church, but it was shortly after Reconstruction days, because the black had to have a church and the white man knew they had to have a church, and so he seen it, he got a church. And then the blacks that were smart enough and were well equipped, more so in the Bible than any of the rest of them, then they're the one that done the preaching and done the leading of the people.
Clarence, you were one of the first black policemen here in Burke County. How did that come about?
That come about in Morgan, in the town of Morganton, when it looked like the crime was getting so bad among the black, until the black citizens went to the town board and pleaded and demanded that you put on some black officers to kind of take care of the black neighborhood and cut down the crime. And so I wasn't actually the first, but I was the second. Next, Forrest was the first, and then Avery Mitchell. He was the first, but somehow that town council disbanded. And then there's another group run for the town council, and they promised the leading black citizens of Morgan, if they would support them and elect them, it did put on some black officers and keep them on there. And then they done that. Well, then they started looking then for qualified men to be officers. Well, I don't know whether I didn't think I was qualified, but anyhow, I put in my application, and it went above, and I just only had a 7th grade education, and there was men put in applications, had the college educations, but I was accepted over them, because I tried to find out for a reason, and I did ask the mayor of the town of Morgan why, and he told me this. Mayor Riddle, which he's dead now, he told me, said, because it's not your education, but it's your experience. You see, he says, Johnson says, we don't want somebody up here it's going to kill up people. We want somebody here we think it can handle those people without killing them. And so that's where I got started as being one of the first black officers, and that's where Forrest Flemings got started to being one of the first black officers, because it was demanded from the black citizens of Morganton that we would have black officers, and it started there, and it hasn't quit yet. Which it was hard for us because we had almost fight the white policemen in order to stay there, even up to the chief, because we were segregated in everything it come about. But after all, we stuck it out. And eventually, I quit in 1958 because I hadn't planned to stay that long. But I just wanted to prove to them the black officers, it would work in the town of Morton.
Were you able to arrest any of the white people in the town, or were you just segregated, patrolling the black neighborhoods only?
Yeah, we was able to arrest the white. Now, here's what was told. I asked the question myself after we were sworn in. I said, now I'm a sworn in officer. Now what is my duty? Just to arrest black people or arrest anybody that's breaking the law? So well, it says anybody that's breaking the law, but it says, I'll tell you. Now I want you to use common sense. So now if you arrest that white man, he's down in your district anywhere, you arrest him. I don't expect you to come uptown here and arrest him now. But if he's breaking the law in your district, you arrest him. Don't bring him up here and put him in jail. You call that white officer and let him come down and get him. Well, I agreed with that. Since things was in the situation was as it was, well, then I agreed to it. But now let me tell you something. But brother, before I left there, I could arrest him uptown. Now that's just how things had gotten to be, because even that white man had done got too tough for them white officers uptown there. So they'd called us in to help them arrest them.
Okay, what about the justice in the courts in Burke County at that time?
Well, the justice in the courts in Burke County at that time, let me say this, I'll say it was rotten, but it wasn't on our part.
Okay.
Now, here the white man could go into court and be tried there in Morgan and Burke County, and they would throw the book at him. Here the black man could go into that court and be tried for actually the same crime and maybe get turned loose for 2 or 3 years. Now that's the justice. It was in the courts. They just didn't they didn't punish the black man enough to stop him from committing a crime.
What about, was that blacks committing crimes against blacks or white?
No, sir. Well, it didn't
what
make
about-
too much. It didn't make too much difference. They just didn't do too much to that black man
At that time?
at that time. Now, and they never did start doing too much to the black man until the black people went complaining about it. At the whites, they would give the white man so much more time for a crime, and the black man come along and commit the same crime. It didn't make no difference if he's against the white or the black, and maybe give him maybe a third or less than a third or maybe a fourth of the sentence. And so as we felt, see, since it was punishing the white man much severe than was the black from the same crime, then we felt then that they was trying to keep us committing crimes and in the gutter, and to keep that white man from committing crimes and keep him out of the gutter. Now that was our feeling. It's not as we was so concerned about giving the black a lesser punishment, but we didn't want we wanted to be somebody too, and we didn't want to have the name of just being black people and committing all kind of crimes, and at the same time, and letting us go with it, and the white man then come along and commit the same crimes, and then punish him severe. You see, they put him out of society for 20 or 30 years, and so that was our feeling, and so that thing, the people then got together and got to talking to the higher ups in the courts and the lawyers and the judges, and kind of demanded a little better
Equal justice.
equal justice. Now, and so then we started getting a little more equal justice after in the night around sometime in the 60s.
There's been so many things that's held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around.